advanced web applications MongoDB. So, about databases. Thus far we have just built a program that saves data to an array, or the file system just dumps the JSON data there. But with databases we get a way to have a real good storing place for our data. And usually in real life the storage for data is some sort of a database. It can be MariaDB, MySQL, PostgreSQL, MongoDB, whatever. It doesn't matter. Well, it matters, but you have to always think about what's the need when you are developing your applications. Databases has mainly text and numbers, although you can store different things like even images and videos to the database. It's usually not the case, and images and videos and other files can be in the file system with link in the database, and the database itself has only text and numbers basically. So databases provide an easy way to store and get specific data. If we want to get an image that has been from databases, all the images that have been uploaded during the last day, then we can make a query to the database. It provides us the links to the files that have been uploaded during the last 24 hours, for example, and then we can show those files, links to those files in our web page. And this is not basics of databases course. We have had our own courses on databases on our LUT University. This is not that kind of a course. We are just using the database. And in this course we are using MongoDB. So what is this MongoDB? It's an open source cross-platform database software. And the essence, MongoDB is a document database. So you are storing a document each time you are putting something in the database. And the database has basically JSON text items. So it's not a rational database like MariaDB. This is a document database. So it's no SQL. You cannot use query languages like SQL, and there are no relations between tables and collections like you have, for example, in MySQL or in MariaDB. But on the other hand, the database is very fast. It's much faster than those SQL databases, which need to take care of all the options for the queries. But these NoSQL databases, they do not need to take care of that. But someone has to take care of these queries and making sure that the correct data is in correct places. And let's say you have users, and then you have a user has different documents, then you need to handle that thing by your code. The database does not take care of that. You need to take care of that. And there are no, for example, cascading between different tables. So if you delete a car, it doesn't mean that the engine of the car is deleted. You, as a programmer, need to make sure that the deletion of a car makes sure that even the engine of the car is then removed. On the other hand, it's very flexible. As a programmer, we can decide whatever we want to do with the database and the data that is in the database. So, as we are building a browser-based software, we are using this kind of a thing that we have a browser which is making HTTP request to the Express and Node.js backend, and we are using Mongoose there, which is then making a query to the database, which is providing us results that are JSON, and that JSON can be then forwarded to the browser, and the browser can do whatever it wishes to the JSON, or we can manipulate that JSON, of course, on our Express Node.js application. So how is this MongoDB different than if we are thinking about traditional SQL database? So as mentioned, this MongoDB does not use any structured query language called SQL, which is a key point in MySQL and MariaDB. So we cannot have this kind of a query to the database where we would insert something into people table with user ID, age, campus, and then we would provide value A1, 45 and Lahti. This kind of things does not exist in MongoDB. But in the other hand, we can make sure that we have a database. Then we are having a people collection, and we are inserting a document there, and the document itself has fields. So we do not have tables, rows and columns. We have collection, document and fields. So here the fields are user ID, age and campus, and then we are providing this data on those fields that are then included in this document. That is this JSON document, and then that's put into the collection. So we are strongly storing documents with fields into collections. And in the SQL world, that would be rows with columns to tables. And of course, you can check this MongoDB manual. There is this SQL comparison, which is very handy. There you see that this term was in the SQL world, and now it's called this in MongoDB. And then there are also examples how to store data and get data from the MongoDB. And then I was mentioning also this Mongoose. So Mongoose is a MongoDB object modeling tool designed to work in an asynchronous environment. So we are using it with the JavaScript and our Node.js backend. So it supports both promises and callbacks. You can use it in different cases, whatever you want. Its job is to ease the development with MongoDB by adding object data modeling. So we have this ODM, which is in a way, if we would be in the SQL world, we would have object relations mapper, or which was provided basically by every PHP framework like G or Gent or whatever. But in the MongoDB world, we have this Mongoose that is providing this object data modeling. Of course, there are documentation which is useful to read through, and there was this blog post is describing that if you are using a Node.js and Express, you really even do not need Mongoose. You can just work through MongoDB directly. But of course, in the same, you could say that you don't need Express.js. You can just use the Node.js. But Express.js helps us to use Node.js, as this Mongoose is helping us to use MongoDB. Let's have an example on this one. So here is our application. First of all, I made this small tweak, so we have now black color here, not white one. But this our front-end client, it's like a perfectly functioning. We do not need to do anything on that side. Now we are focusing here on the back end. So let's have terminal here, and now first of all we need to have this Mongoose, so we could use that. So we need to install it. npm install Mongoose. Now it is working, and then npm start. We can now have a closed Discord and Teams, and I have now the backend up and running, so we can get forms from the backend. So first of all, this Mongoose, so we can add it here. Just we are importing connection from Mongoose, and Mongoose is the tool. And then we need to have this database, so we are initializing it. So let's have this MongoDB. This is a string, and its value is just MongoDB, which is where we are connecting to. Where is it? It's in the localhost, and port is to 27,017, and as we have these poems here, we could have a poemdb as our database. So we do not need to use any other tool to create this database. There is no this kind of a database right now, but as we are putting something there in the database, then the MongoDB will automatically create that database. And now we can connect this Mongoose, and we use this string that we just built. And then we set as this Mongoose promise equals promise. Thus it will use the promise way. And then let's have a database that's type is connection, and that's a Mongoose connection like this. So now we have the database object here. And then if there are errors on the database, we could have some kind of a error logging. So we are binding this console to show the errors. Like this. Now if we have an error, then it will print us it. No, it did not, so we are connected to the database, which is good. Then we would like to have some kind of a model for the database. So we have this source. Let's have a models folder here in the source, like this. And here in the models folder, let's have this poem ts. So this is going to be our model for the database collection. No, actually the document. So let's first define an interface, which is called iPoem. And this is extending document. That's the basic part in the database. We have a poem, that's string. Then we have this VIP status, that's a boolean type. And then let's have a date. So what's the date the poem was inserted to the database? And of course this is going to be typed as a date. Then we need a new schema for this document. And there is this poem, which type is string. Is it required? No. Required. True. So this is this has to be this poem. And then we will have those two other fields, VIP date, which are boolean and date, and they all are required, so we cannot insert poem without those fields. Then let's create a model. And here we are using this our interface type. Like this. And finally we are exporting this module. We have here poem and the interface iPoem. Like this. It should be working. This schema is now used when we are putting data to the database. Then we could have here in the data, we could have a poems.ts, and here we have this type poem, that is poem string. We can use this when we are populating some poems. So this is a poem array. No, like this. And I will just copy paste some poems there, like this. And finally we are also exporting this one. Eight errors. Yeah, here's typo. And now it's working. So what next? Let's move this to its correct. No. Let's have a new folder called routes. So this is the index route. I cannot find source index. Where do we have a still it somewhere? Oh, this is correct. Yeah. So yeah, it was updated but not saved. So what next? Here we have these routes, but now they are writing to this file, so we do not need this file anymore. So we can basically remove this file system thingy here and replace it with the other things, like we created this poem and iPoem interface. Now they are imported, and then we are also importing this populate poems, and we are not needing this anymore because we are not using that, and we are not needing this file system. So now we should get poems from the database. Let's first build a way to put these poems to the database. So we will have just a hack here. So what we will need a new route. It's just a get, and it's called API /poems/populate. With this we can get this database populated, in a way initialized. So there is a request object, and of course there is also this response object. And let's just have a for loop equals 0 is less than this populate poems.length I plus, like this. This is just a very simple for loop. And then we are creating a new poem. Its type is this interface iPoem, like that. And we need to put some data, of course, there. So its poem itself will be this populate poems I.poem. So if we go here, we have this poem and its content is this. This is the key and content. And this VIP can be false here. It's just something, and the data let's have a new date, and not data but new date. Let's have a new date object, so we will have just the date we are using right now, we are having right now. And then we are saving this poem like this. And if this was successful, then let's just put something database populated, and this response JSON can be with message database no message database populated. So we are giving this to the one that is And yes, this should be JSON, of course, like this. Still 6 errors, so we are still using, of course, this file system. Let's get rid of this. We will modify these later on. And let's get our Bruno back here. So now we should make a get call to this API poems populate. So let's just call that API poems populate like this. Let's see, we should get back the message database populated. So we cannot post there, that is very true, but we can get there hopefully. Yes, we got a get call, now our database should be up and running. So now let's test that we actually put something on the database. So we can have just some terminal window and start this Mongoose database tool that is run in the terminal. And we can then use our poems database. Was it called poems database or poem? Now I already forget. Poem database. And then just trying to find something, actually trying to find everything that is in this collection, then just we can make a poems that are those that are written in the database, and find is providing us everything. So it seems that our database is working. So let's see, this one poem, it has an ID. This is automatically generated. Its type is object ID, some kind of a hash there. Then we have the actual poem, its VIP status, and then the date. And this is in ISO date format, so there is year, month, day, and then time to the millisecond, I think. But as you can see, this is not the time zone I have. This is using a UTC time zone. And then there is this version number. So this is the actual first version. So there is this international versioning going on. So it worked. Our application has the possibility to put stuff in the database, and we can then use this API endpoint to generate data. Then it would be also nice to have this data on our application. So this get all poems, that should somehow work. So we could have this also through this API URL. So to get all poems, let's make this function to asynchronous, and now we are just modifying this. So instead of getting stuff from file system and array, we are getting data from the database. So as we did, we made a find call here in the terminal. We can also make this find call here and then get the poems to this array, or if there are none, then we will probably get null. So if this poems is empty, is not empty, I mean, then we are just returning this response status. Yeah, if it's empty, sorry, I'm not. If it is empty, then we are returning this response for not found with JSON message. Like this. Otherwise, we can return this JSON message with data of these poems, like this. And if we have an error, then we can just log that some error was found. Actually, let's go with these. Yeah, and we can then return status, for example, 500 with the message internal server error. Yeah, let's see, we could call this poems, and we got all the poems. So also, if we are using this get poems from API, it should work. It provided us 404 because the URL is incorrect. So this is incorrect. Now it works. Well, we need to also check this posting part. So, but of course we would also like to get a one poem instead of many poems. So just let's copy paste this here. We will need this ID. So we are finding a, we are missing the async keyword. So this find us everything, but now we know the ID. So let's find by ID. And we have the ID already here, so we can copy paste this here. Otherwise, this should be okay. So let's try to find a, okay, let's modify this. This is API/poems/ID. So poems/5. Internal server error. So now we are here. There was an issue. Yes, we are only finding a one poem, of course, but it should not, of course, here. Yeah, this is not an array we are getting. So here, of course, the error is also visible here in the console. So we have a cast error. So we are casting object ID from value 5. This is a number type. So yes, our database is not, the IDs are not numbers. So let's just take this in the core, or no, let's have this copy pasted. If we can make a call like this, yeah, and then it's not typed as a string, so let's let's take this immediately here, and let's take this out, and let's now see what is happening. Now we got a one poem, so the ID is not anymore just a 1 or 2 or 3, it's this ID in the database, so this has to be used here, and it's definitely not a number. And then we are missing this post part, so we are posting something with ID, not with ID. Post API poem, and this is also async. So let's first go to the front end and modify this. So we are not providing the poem, but we would also like to give the VIP status. So let's have the VIP here, and then here we have this VIP checked. few plus signs, of course. Like this. Now we are providing also the VIP status to the backend. And yeah, let's remove these. Fix this. No. And let's start. So we are trying to do something. We are trying to save the data to the database. First, let's see if there is an existing poem with this same content. So we do not want to save the same poem twice to our database. So this is typed as this interface poem, or it is null if we are getting nothing. Now we are using this database through this find one method. Here we have the poem, and it's the request body poem. And then we can, of course, then check if we have this existing poem. Then we cannot save it, so we are doing something else. We are returning response status 4 or 5, 4 or 3, and with the message message poem already existed. Otherwise, we can then finally save the poem. So let's first create the actual poem that we are then going to save. Its type is this interface poem, and new poem. So it was there here in the request body.poem. Similarly, the VIP status was there in the VIP. And then we need to have this date, which is this new date. Now we have the poem, then we are just going to save it like this. And we could actually mention this is poem save like this. And then we are returning status 201 and JSON message like this. And as this is already catching the error, we are not catching the error, so there might be an error which we need to catch like this. And then I'm just going to copy paste some code here, so we could have this internal server error. Now it is working, and this is post call to API poem. Let's check. We are making a post call to API poem like this. And let's see. First of all, we can get the poems. This is a very new poem. Let's try to post this, and it is important. Yes, but it was not saved as a VIP there. So this did not work. So let's go and see what's in the database. It is VIP, but we are not using the VIP value when we are adding the here we have a false as a default, but we should have the poem called VIP value here. So let's see if this is now fixed. Yes, now it is bolded. So yeah, this is it. This is how we handle the database pretty much. So let's check few things here. So here we have the model. So first of all, we have the interface that we can then use when we are setting at what type of these our variables are. They are with this type, which is now set here. And then we have the schema, and we are then creating this poem object through this mongoose model, and then we have the poem itself here. And through this poem object we can actually access to the database and make a queries there. So we are finding some poem only one, or we are finding it by ID, or we are finding all of them. And also we have here how we can add just something there, and these are now real API endpoints. Well, we had the API endpoints in the previous example, but these are in a way that they are real. They are providing us JSON, and we can easily call them and try to get the data as we wish. So this is how we communicate with MongoDB. And then, as a conclusion, MongoDB is a NoSQL database. It's very often used with Node.js application. Of course, you can use MariaDB or MySQL with Node.js. That's completely fine if that's the best tool for your case. It is very fast and very popular, and can basically save only JSON documents to those collections.